Hey friend, unprocessed emotion is one of the leading causes of anxiety. Our ability to organize our experience isn't innate, meaning that we're not born with it.
We have to practice it and learn it.
It's a capacity that's developed through life-giving experiences. But if I don't have this brain capacity, I can't facilitate the life-giving experiences for my kiddos that enables them to develop the capacity.
Yeah. There are some people who are naturally in tune with their emotions. That's me. But you were like the opposite. Imagine not being strong in emotional intelligence and God's like, I want you to be a therapist.
We talk about divine comedy.
Oh my gosh, divine comedy, but like my encouragement to our listeners, our audience is just, if you've ever felt like God called you to something you were unequipped for, take heart. God wired it into you also because he loves you.
Oh, that's so good.
You just haven't tapped into it yet.
If you're not sure what unprocessed emotion is or how to go about processing emotion to completion, we're here to fix that. Stay tuned. This episode's for you. Welcome, and thank you for being here. I'm Josh Spurlock. I'm a licensed professional counselor with a degree in biblical languages. I also developed a model of therapy called Neuroscience-Informed Christian Counseling and founded the faith-based therapy company, My Counselor Online. Every month, my team and I help thousands of people mature into their true self and experience true happiness. We have a 93% success rate and 4.8 stars on Trustpilot. It just works. And in this podcast, we share the secrets we've learned to true happiness, the abundant life that Jesus spoke of in John 10:10. So thanks for joining us. Let's learn something together. Hey friend, many people find themselves cut off from their emotions or conversely drowning in their emotions. And neither being cut off or drowning is processing emotion to completion. So we're continuing our series here on the Road to Happiness podcast on anxiety. And today specifically, we're going to take a look at what is unprocessed emotion, how does it cause anxiety, and how do we actually process emotion through to completion and thereby relieve the anxiety that's caused by the unprocessed emotion. I'm joined by my lovely co-host and wife, Cassie Spurlock. And let's dive in. So in this podcast, the beginning premise, if you're new around here, is that the author of Scripture, the Bible, and the designer of our nervous system are one and the same. That Jesus inspired the writers of the Bible, and that it's God's word to us, and he designed the nervous system. We get this from the Bible in Colossians, where it says all things were created through Christ Jesus. And so anything that exists because it was created by him. So that would mean us, that would mean the inspiration of the scriptures themselves. And so we like to interpret the neuroscience, that is the study of Jesus' design of the nervous system and what we can learn from that and interpret that through the lens of the scripture. So I want to start today with looking at a Bible verse. And I want to look at Psalm chapter 62, verse 8. And it says, "O my people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge." I think it's a beautiful invitation in the Psalms to pour out our heart before God, that he cares about us and he wants for us to bring our emotions to him. A lot of times we get some bad theology in the church, this idea that emotion is bad, that God wants us to stomp down, squish out, ignore emotion, which the Bible doesn't teach. There's nowhere in the Bible that says that. We unpack in other episodes a verse in Jeremiah that sometimes is used to undermine emotion and its validity. But if we understand that in context, we see that that's not what that passage is teaching. that emotion is God's idea. He designed it. It's reflective of his nature, that he feels emotions, that he expresses emotions, that Jesus, when he embodied the human nervous system that he designed as he walked in his earthly ministry, felt emotion, expressed emotion, never taught against emotion. And so we really want to have a good theology and a good neuro understanding of the biology of emotion so that we can use that to navigate life well. And when we don't have a good relationship with emotion, one of the byproducts of that, one of the side effects of that is anxiety.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anxious folks, and they don't know where their anxiety is coming from. They don't know why they experience anxiety. And they're caught up in the hamster wheel of just managing the symptoms of anxiety instead of really understanding what's causing their anxiety to begin with, what their anxiety is trying to tell them, and use that information to better their life. So we're here to fix that and hopefully help you understand for yourself, for those you love, for those maybe that you minister to in your community, in your church, and know how to help them along the way. So, any thoughts on emotion and anxiety before we start getting super nerdy?
I think I just feel excited. But I'm always feeling excited about sharing about these things because they've been so impactful in my life. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the wave of emotion. And I remember the first time that it used to be when people would, especially my kids, they would come, they would tell me about these things. I have adult adopted daughters. Like they came to me as teenagers. And I can remember when they would come to me with their big emotions and just feeling like, I care so much, I want to fix this for them. Mm-hmm. Like I want to stop this yucky feeling. I want them to feel better. And so I would be with them in their emotion, but it would be like, hurry, I need to figure out what I need to do to help them fix this, to give them what they need in this moment. That's like some brilliant, insightful thing. Turns out they really just needed my presence, which they got lots of. But I can remember the first time that I sat with one of my daughters who was having a really tough time, and she was moved out by then. There was nothing I could do about this situation. It was a different thing because before there were things that I felt like I could do to tangibly help. And this time I couldn't do anything. And so I can remember sitting with her and her just escalating and like crying and just me being like, oh, this is so scary. I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. And then just the wave happening as it does, and her being seen and me being with her in that moment, and then the peace that came to her, the calmness of her body, that big shuddering breath that we talked about last time, and then like this sense of, for her, not that anything was different in the situation, but just the sense of, I'm going to be okay, even though my situation hasn't changed. And so I feel really passionate about sharing this information because I witnessed it firsthand in somebody else. I have witnessed it for myself, my own therapy and my own processing emotions with my different groups that I'm a part of and my friends. But to get to be helping somebody in that space and watch it happen and be like, oh my gosh, this is actually, like, that's what she needed. She just needed me to be there and be present and hold that with her. And like, it's so accessible, I think is what feels so powerful about it. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it with their friends. And so I feel excited to get into like some of the tactical pieces of it so that we can better one another, each other. We can help each other get rid of this very unpleasant anxiety that we're feeling.
Yeah, I love it so much. I think, one of the things you touched on that it is so obviously close to our heart is, there's a misconception, I think sometimes, that like processing emotion and is something that only professionals can do.
Yeah.
Like you have to go be with a therapist in order to process emotion. And I am a therapist, and we lead a therapy company and provide lots of care. And so therapy can be very helpful because you have professionals who understand the things that we're teaching you here. And so they're able to use that understanding of the nervous system in order to facilitate emotion processing. And if you don't know how to do that, learning it from somebody that's their wheelhouse and what they do professionally all day long can be extremely beneficial.
Yeah, it can speed up the process of learning.
Yeah, it can accelerate that a lot and be very, very helpful. And the process is something that belongs to all of us. It's something that God wired into the nervous system. And long before there were professional therapists, there was the body of Christ. Like professional therapy as a profession has existed for just over 100 years at this juncture. Like it's still babying in its infancy as a profession, but caring for people's souls and being with people in their suffering and helping them move through lament and helping them kind of celebrating and expressing joy with the joyful things in life and weeping with people and being with them in the hard things of life, bearing one another's burdens.
Yeah, that sounds pretty biblical.
Yeah, this is soul care, and it's the responsibility of the church for us to love one another well. And so all of us have access to this. And I believe it's the heart of God that all of us would practice this with one another. Yeah. It's part of loving one another well. It's what the Bible means when it says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Like these are the mechanics neurologically and practically that are at play in those kinds of one anothering experiences.
And I just want to say, like, I don't think God, in my opinion, is like, you need to do this. If you want to please me, if you want to make me happy, if you want me to be cool with you, well, that's not even my opinion. That's just scripture. You need to do this. It's an invitation. Mm-hmm. It's like, I have something really good for you here. And that's why I set this up this way. That's why I'm telling you, bear one another's burdens. That's why I'm telling you, mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice, because I have something really good for you. I think when we are in the midst of anxiety, we can hear like, just do this. And it's like, not one more thing. I cannot do one more thing. And so it's just important to me to communicate like, this is not one more pressure on you to fulfill a responsibility that you have. It's a gentle nudge that's like, hey, come here. I have something for you and it's good and I want it for you.
Yeah, it's a good word. It's a good word. I like unpacking these things because oftentimes emotion, and earlier in my life, this is how I felt about it, that emotion was like this black box. I didn't have experiences of life that developed emotional intelligence, my capacity for emotional intelligence. Growing up, my parents didn't have it to offer, and so I didn't have experiences with them that gave it to me. And so emotion was just like metaphysical. It was like I was in the air. These influences or powers that I didn't understand that just would come upon me in ways that I just needed to like suppress in order
crush those emotions,
to stay in control,
bring them into subjection.
That's right, submission and that, right? And so actually learning the neurology of emotions and helped make it more tangible and concrete to me. Like it was less scary and confusing because it wasn't this just kind of ethereal, mystic, black box sort of sorcery.
Well, and it gave it so much credibility. It was like, oh, this is a system God wired. I can trust my good Father's design for me. So
Right.
it makes sense, even if my life experience up until this point hasn't given me the feeling that that is good. Like, my God is good,
Yes.
and these things must be good. So I should learn about them.
And as I started to learn about it, it brought so much freedom and empowerment to me personally in my own life, and then equipping me to be able to be helpful to others, that, I'm just like a junkie now. This is where I got to talk about this stuff all the time, thus this podcast, and because it's so life-changing when you understand these things.
Yeah. And I, just having known you since you were a teenager, just the difference in who you are and how you show up in the world today.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, I think one of the things that I'm saying by naming that is like, there are some people who are naturally in tune with their emotions. Their life experiences have given that to them as part of their growing up. And so
What a gift.
That's me, like naturally more in tune with my emotion, strong on intuition, low on logic. You win some, you lose some. But you were like the opposite. And it was a very tall hill for you to climb to grow in this capacity of emotional intelligence. So I'm just naming that. If you're like watching this and you're like, well, some people just can do it and other people can't. That's just, God wired it into you also because he loves you.
Oh, that's so good.
You just haven't tapped into it yet.
For sure. Yeah. I was definitely one of those people who believed that. I believed that it was just some people had it, some people didn't. And, maybe it was biological, maybe it was from birth. Like, I didn't really know why some people had it and some people didn't. I just knew that I didn't have it. And so I would say, I'm just not really an emotional person, that's not, that's not me. Other people, fine, that's great, but that's not me. And to learn that that wasn't true, that God did actually wire my nervous system like everybody else's in humanity, and that I had capacity for that as well. And those capacities just weren't developed. Wow, what a game changer. And then as I began to lean into things that develop those capacities, and those capacities begin to develop in me, it was like, holy smokes.
You're like, I got to tell people about this.
Yeah, it's like there's a whole different aspect of being alive and being a human and being a relationship that I had no knowledge of. I didn't even know existed and didn't know was possible for me. And so, it was like something, a 40-50% of what it is to be human that was not accessible to me, that it suddenly came online. And I could experience life and relationships so much different than I did before. So,
just as like a tiny, tiny sidebar, imagine not being strong in emotional intelligence and God's like, I want you to be a therapist.
we talk about divine comedy.
Oh my gosh, divine comedy. But like, my encouragement to our listeners, our audience, is just, if you've ever felt like God called you to something you were unequipped for, take heart. We feel you. And he equips the called.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much like, I think about Moses being called to be the mouthpiece of God and him being like, I can't talk. Like I'm completely inept at using words. And God's like, yeah, I want to use you. And that, that's kind of what it felt like, being totally inept at emotion and being like, yeah, I want you to be a therapist. Like, say what? Like, you got the wrong number here. Like, do you know who you're talking to? He's like, yeah. My power is made perfect in your weakness. I'm like, well, your power's got all sorts of opportunity to display here because I'm about as weak as they come.
Excellent. Let's see you go.
All right, let's recap just what emotion is and what it does, because if we've deep dived in this in other episodes, if you haven't caught those, you should go back and check them out, because we spent a lot of time digging around and just elucidating, explaining what emotion is and how it works. So I want to recap it here because it's so important to understanding what unprocessed emotion is, how to process emotion, and how unprocessed emotion causes anxiety. So I love my little brain model here because Jesus designed the brain, and I love studying his word, and I love studying his nervous system that he designed. So here's our nerdy brain model here. So this is our brain stem, all of the sensory data of our body, everything we smell, taste, touch, all the external senses that come into our body, kind of that information feeds into our brain stem here. And also the neuroception or interoception, that is what's happening inside of our body, is as a source of information that feeds into here also. That we actually have nerve cells and brain type cells throughout our body. It's very interesting in the science right now as we're discovering cells around the heart and around different organs that, when you have organ transplants with people, and you find memory transfer kind of between organ recipients, that in both implicit learnings, things, and it's like, this is weird.
Yeah, suddenly I know how to write with my left hand.
Yeah, all sorts of really interesting stuff. We call it the embodied nervous system. We're beginning to understand that the functions that we used to think were just in the brain actually are connected to components throughout our body, in our gut, in our heart.
God's like, you think you learned something? Now I'm going to one-up you with some other additional layer to how intricate my creation is.
Yeah. When Psalmist says we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and that he's in awe at it, that just doesn't stop. And I don't think it ever will.
Yeah.
I think, Christ will return and we'll be in the new season of human history before we exhaust discovering all of the marvels of his design of creation. But so all of that sensory data comes in here, and it is first filtered, imagine this, through the emotion center of our brain. Like the very first place all of that data hits is the emotion center of our brain. And these cells, back when this brain is itty bitty and tiny, and all there is a brain stem, these are the very first brain cells to develop the subcortical midline structures that sit right on top of the brain stem. So when just a few days after conception, the spinal cord and the brain stem have formed in the womb, and these midline structures that sit on top of the brain stem are formed and become active and begin to respond to stimuli. And they actually influence the building of the whole rest of the brain. They're emotional in nature, they're the emotion structures, and we believe them to be the seat of the soul, like really where the intangible aspect of who we are, our soul in the spiritual realm, it is kind of acts like an antennae of sorts that allows for the interface between the physical body and the spiritual space and realm. And it happens through our emotion system. And it is an information system or a dashboard for our whole body and interpreting and making sense of all of our experience of life. We first evaluate all experience through the emotional parts of our brain, and we decide things at a very basic level of, is this good or bad for me? Do I want to move towards this or move away from this? Does this create pain? Is it scary? Is it a threat? Or is this good and nurturing?
Yeah.
It's, as an infant, like a child, like we're taking cues. We don't understand language. We don't have lots of experiences to compare.
Yeah.
But we're making judgments about, does this person feel safe? Do I feel safe in this? Mm-hmm. Does this feeling in my body of hunger, that doesn't feel good. It creates distress. And so we cry out, that we reach out for help. And when we receive what it is we need in terms of comfort and nurturance and food and care, it soothes our nervous system. All of that is emotional engagement of processing experience and action tendency, taking action based on the emotions that we're feeling, whether we feel discomfort, whether we feel fear, crying out. Those are emotional interpretations of physical sensations and data, an action tendency that we take action on that enables us to navigate the situation that we're facing. And it all happens long before this part of our brain up here develops and we have conscious thought or words.
Yeah, as a baby, we're not thinking, I'm hungry. I need to cry so that I can get somebody to give me attention and feed me.
Correct. None of those, we don't have thoughts like that as babies. The part of our brain that formulates things in conscious thought, like you just verbalized there, those parts of the brain aren't built and active yet. But the emotion systems are, and that's what we're operating on. And what people don't realize is that those emotion systems that are operant from a few days after conception continue to be the primary operating system that we operate on our entire life. Now the system gets more sophisticated.
Yeah, it gets more parts.
Yeah, it gets more parts, it gets more sophisticated, but it's still at its core an emotion informed and driven situation. So emotion has body sensation that's associated. We feel our feelings in our body.
Yeah, they're not just ethereal, but like we feel them as tension or I was watching somebody the other day and something happened and their ears just got redder and redder. It was a lot of fun. It was somebody I know that I was like, oh, look at them being embarrassed. Tickled, but embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, we feel it in all these different body sensations that we might not be aware of.
Right. Yeah. It's happening unconsciously. It's in our body. We do have them. All of us, all humans do. But that doesn't mean we're consciously aware of them.
Yeah.
Having emotional experience and having conscious awareness of emotional experience are two different things. The conscious awareness of our emotional experience and knowing what to do with it is what we call the emotional intelligence capacity. And it's something that has to be developed through life-giving experiences that teach us how to do that. And if we haven't had those life-giving experiences, that developmental capacity is delayed, it's stunted, it's underdeveloped, and we're not able to do that. Fortunately, that's curable. That's not a permanent condition. We can have the life-giving experiences that develop those capacities. I'm living proof of that in my own life and have experienced later in life the development of those capacities.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. It's good for everybody. So we have the brainstem, we have the emotion processing system that does an initial, like the amygdala, does a threat assessment. One of the first things that our body does with all sensory data that comes in is evaluate, is there a threat here? Is there a threat here? Is there a threat here? Because its job is to keep us safe and to keep us alive. And when there's a threat of some sort, the anxiety alarm sounds. And that's where we experience anxiety, is along a continuum of intensity based on the fear or threat level that the amygdala senses a situation to be.
Yes.
Right? So that's sounding that alarm. And there's also this region called the hippocampus that's connected and touches into the amygdala and this whole limbic system. And the hippocampus is the librarian of the brain. So the hippocampus is going to go and pull relevant memories to a given situation. So like if we, sensory data-wise, are out in the Serengeti.
Okay.
And we see a lion a few inches away or a few feet away, the alarm system in our brain is going to go haywire, right?
Mm-hmm.
We may just dorsal vagal.
Yes, I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, here you go.
Yeah. When our brain senses that there's an imminent and serious threat and there's nothing we can do about it, it goes dorsal vagal, shut down, conserve energy, play possum, play dead, faint, just pass out. So that's a protective mechanism. If there's a threat and it's imminent, but I can't beat a lion, I can't outrun it, I can't outfight it, best thing to do is to play dead.
Yeah, it's not a cognitive decision. That's not a logical decision. Your brain just does it.
Yes, because the cognitive and decisions where we make an informed decision about what we're going to do happens through this prefrontal cortex, and specifically the orbital frontal cortex, this very front lobe. So it's right kind of behind our eyeballs and our eyebrows, up on our head. And it's where we kind of make conscious decisions about action to take, right? But when we're under a high level of distress, a high level of threat, the body, the brain directs blood away from these regions of the brain that are slower and resource intensive and towards these emotional centers of our brain to reflexively respond to situations. And so when we have an extreme threat or a high level of anxiety or a high level of sympathetic activation, these parts of our brain actually go dark. Like there's vasoconstriction that directs blood away from here and towards here. And we no longer have the brain capacity to think our way through what decisions to make. We just reflexively make decisions. And that's a protective feature that got wired into the nervous system. But all things being equal, we got a left side of our brain and a right side of our brain here, right? And this right side of our brain organizes and synthesizes all the emotional information. It has structures that uniquely connect to the emotion center of the brain. And it serves, this orbital frontal cortex here, serves as the emotion manager. It brings all the information from the different parts of our emotion system and kind of synthesizes that information. And it sends information back and forth to the emotional center of our brain. So back to our Serengeti story, if the lion is there and, a few feet away, we gonna sound the alarm to an extreme degree.
Yes.
But if we're at the city zoo,
yes,
and there's a big sheet of glass, hardened glass between us and the lion cage, and the lion is still just a few feet away, but there's safety.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of similarity between the situation. There is a lion. It is close. Lion, I can't outrun him.
Nope.
I can't outfight him. All those things are the same. But the hippocampus region of our brain is able to access memories and is able to bring in context.
Yes.
And go, yeah, there is a lion. Yeah, there's a threat there, but there's also glass. There's safety. There's other things.
Yeah. Look at all these other people. Nobody's being eaten.
Nobody is running. Nobody's screaming. There's safety signals from these other people that are around. There's little babies pressed with their face up against the glass. Like all of the relevant information is being synthesized through this right hemisphere of the orbital frontal cortex, and it's adding context to the emotion, right? And so our body isn't responding with alarm because it's able to take the whole scene in together and put it together. Now, all of this that we've talked about up to this point about emotion and emotion processing is all unconscious.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about this.
No, we don't get to make a choice. It just happens. Yeah,
we're not having thoughts about how to respond, whether or not we need adrenaline and cortisol to dump into our bloodstream. None of this is within the realm of our making a decision consciously about what to do with an experience.
Totally.
And we may not even be aware of any of it happening. In fact, most of our emotion processing day to day happens without any conscious awareness of it at all.
Totally. And it's every second. Like we are processing emotion
Every second of every
unconsciously
day.
every second.
Yeah. So where does conscious awareness and the processing of emotion come in? Right. So all of that emotion that we're just talking about is unconscious, unprocessed at this juncture. Okay. Well, the way we process emotion is all of that information that has been synthesized and organized in the left hemisphere of the brain over here. It gets moved, file transfer, over to the left hemisphere of the brain. In the left orbital frontal cortex, up here, this very front part of our brain, this is where language lives. This is where conscious awareness lives. This is where we're able to construct a story intentionally, consciously, about what's going on. And then we're able to pass that information back and forth. So when I become aware that I'm feeling sad, the sadness is felt and triggered in the emotional center of my brain, and it's synthesized. All the meaning of it is kind of brought together around and interpreted in the right hemisphere. But then my awareness of it happens over here. And my ability to notice, reflect on. So when I'm seeing my eyes go up, I'm noticing and checking in with my body, what it is I'm feeling inside. I'm noticing what it is I'm feeling. I'm using this part of my brain to access information on this side of my brain and to become consciously aware through reflection of what it is that I'm experiencing over here. And then I'm seeking this language portion over here. I'm seeking the words of, oh, I'm noticing the sensations that I'm feeling. And I'm connecting that with words.
You're
I think
noticing
I'm feeling sad.
and naming.
Yeah, I'm noticing that through reflection, and I'm naming, which are both functions of the left orbital frontal cortex. Blah, 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 blah. And that is processing the emotion. It's making sense.
Yep, it's organizing
It's
it.
organizing my experience. And if you've been around for a little while, you know that I can only organize my experience if this part of my brain is online.
Yep.
And this part of my brain can only be online if I'm regulated. If I'm outside of my window of tolerance, if I'm too distressed to tolerate, the brain goes into preservation mode. This part of the brain goes dark, and I no longer can organize my experience, right? Now, our ability to organize our experience isn't innate, meaning that we're not born with it.
We have to practice it and learn
Yeah,
it.
it's a capacity that's developed through life-giving experiences. What do we mean by that? Life-giving experiences. Life-giving experiences are experiences of life that develop our capacities for life in various developmental domains. So as it pertains to emotion and emotional intelligence, the use of this part of our brain involves experiences with other humans. So, for example, one aspect of this part of our brain is language. We're not born with language. We don't come from the womb with language. We have repeated experiences with parents, typically primary caregivers, people around us, hearing them use words, associating words with objects.
Yeah.
And if we have emotionally intelligent parents, associating words with feeling experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we tell our toddler, like, oh, you're really mad right now, it looks like. Look at your body. Look at your fists. Your face is red. You're mad. And that's how they learn.
Yes, exactly. That we're actually lending a more mature brain and nervous system to a less mature brain and nervous system in a way that builds this part of the brain through experiences. And so through many, many experiences with primary caregivers, we learn how to use this part of our brain to reflect on our emotional experience, this side of the brain, and then learn to associate that experience with language, which builds emotional intelligence. Then we're able to perceive emotional experience in others and put language to it. That's the foundation for empathy, our ability to empathize with others. We're able to have self-awareness of our own emotional experience and allow it to inform our action as it pertains to relationship. And all of that is built through emotional experiences. So if we haven't had
Yeah.
those experiences, we have, gaps in our development, then our capacity for doing that is limited.
Yeah. It makes sense. You can only learn to do that by having the experience. You can't read it in a book and learn to do it. I mean, that would be nice, but it's not how God wired us. And I say that would be nice, but like it's so much richer and sweeter, the discipleship model that he wove into how he structured families and teaching and all the structures that he put in relationally for humans.
Yeah. It's Jesus's design, and he gives us the family of God to fill in the gaps where our family of origin wasn't able to give us something. None of us were born into perfect families. This is a sin-broken world. We all have wounds. We all have gaps from our developmental experience and years of life.
And we're all going to give wounds and gaps to our children.
This is true. This is true.
No matter how intentional we are.
But if I don't have this brain capacity, I can't facilitate the life-giving experiences for my kiddos that enables them to develop the capacity.
Yeah. So as much as we would want it for them and think it's valuable, if we're not willing to do it ourselves, we can't lead them.
Totally.
In that.
And if our parents didn't have it to give, we didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's not a moral failure to be underdeveloped in these ways.
For sure.
But it is our responsibility, once we gain awareness around those deficits, to seek out and pursue the life-giving experiences that can allow us to continue to mature and develop. The name of this podcast is The Road to Happiness. And the punchline is that maturity is the road to happiness, because maturity is how we develop into our true self and experience the true happiness that Jesus has for us, which requires leaning into life-giving experiences and seeking out life-giving experiences to develop the capacities, to develop the maturity in the different areas of our life where we have deficits and we have wounds and we have gaps.
The good and bad news is that we're each responsible for this for ourselves. We have control to pursue it, but nobody else can pursue it for us.
That's right. God wants it for us. So we all have emotional experience, and it makes it all the way up to the right hemisphere of our brain for all of us, because this part of our brain is synthesizing all the information that's passing around. But it doesn't always make it to the left brain for all of us. We don't all have conscious awareness of our emotional experience. We don't all have a language for our experience. And so developing this capacity over here. In the absence of that capacity, we have unprocessed emotion.
Which feels bad.
It does, because emotion is like a check engine light in our car. Like it's alerting us to something that matters in our experience. And God intends for it to inform us, not to control us, but to inform us so that we can make wise decisions.
Yeah.
And so our brain wants to process emotion through this left hemisphere. And it feels afraid when we can't, right? It's a danger.
Yeah, because we don't understand what to do.
Yes, our brain is trying to keep us safe, and it's providing information
To help keep us safe.
Yeah.
But we can't access it.
Yeah, in some ways, anxiety acts like one of those notifications or reminders on your phone, right? It is going off to let you know that there's some information that's maybe urgent, some more urgent, some less urgent. But it's like you got a priority notification on your phone, and it's going ding, ding, ding.
You're like, just shut this thing up. I don't know what to do with it.
And you just try to silence the alarm. You just try to make it go away, but it just keeps dinging.
And then you found out somebody stole your credit card and is using it in a different state to buy
mercy.
Whatever might be on the charge.
Right? Like there's important information that it's trying to get to you, and it's persistent because it's trying to get that important information for you. And so that unprocessed emotion becomes anxiety. It manifests in the system as anxiety.
Yeah.
And it can be unprocessed because we don't know how to access this and process it. There's a gap there developmentally, but it could also be blocked. And what I mean is we could have a wound. Sometimes not only do we not get equipped with life-giving experiences that develop our emotional intelligence capacity, but we actually have life-robbing experiences where acknowledging or expressing emotion becomes threatening. It could be a scenario where we are not allowed to express sadness in a family, and we had a message of, well, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
Where there's relational disconnect, or don't be such a big baby.
Yeah.
Or something of that nature that cause pain and fear and rejection and disconnect when we expressed emotion. And so we learned to actively block feeling and languaging and expressing emotion because it was a threat to do so.
Yeah.
And so then whenever we're feeling emotion that wants to be acknowledged and expressed, because all emotion does, it sounds the threat alarm in our brain, and it creates anxiety for us because it's like, oh no, we can't go there.
Block it. We got to figure out how to make this go away.
Yeah, never again. Remember what happened. The hippocampus accesses those memories of what happened, and it creates anxiety when those emotions come up. And so that emotion remains unprocessed because there's a safety part of our brain intentionally protecting us from processing it, because the brain wants to process it.
Yeah.
It's a bigger threat to process it.
Yeah.
And so your brain is in this double bind. It feels anxiety because there's emotion that wants to process and it's not processed.
Yeah.
And then it feels anxiety because it's scary to access and process that. And so there's this tension or internal conflict within us around feeling and expressing the emotion that's happening there. And as you might imagine, the tug of war between the anxiety to acknowledge and express and the anxiety around if I do, what might happen if I do acknowledge and express.
And sometimes our left brain, like our logical brain, will say, it's okay to be sad, but we can't allow ourselves to feel it. And so that can be confusing, I think, sometimes to people, because they're like, it's okay to be sad. There are sad things in life. Sadness is a part of life. But if you dig into that a little bit more, they're like, oh, it's okay for somebody else to be sad.
Yeah.
It's not okay for me to be sad.
Yeah, talking about emotion is not the same as feeling emotion and processing emotion.
Yeah.
Which I think is real important. Like you can talk about in a detached way emotion as a cognitive concept, as information, without actually an embodied experiencing and processing emotion.
And people do it all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Like, it is such a common thing to talk about emotion. Even in a lot of therapy, there's a lot of talking about emotion, but there's like, we can come to therapy and be like, yeah, this bad thing happened. That was sad. That was sad. But moving on, like,
and we're laughing, and I'm laughing, but you may not realize, because she's not saying it explicitly, is she's talking about emotion without feeling the emotion, right?
Yes.
That her face is flat. The emotion isn't embodied. She's not actually connected with the right hemisphere experience. She's just using knowledge about emotion and language about emotion to talk about emotion without actually feeling the emotion.
Which, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, doesn't actually bring the emotion up in a way that we're able to process it. Like, we actually have to feel it to process it.
One of the components of processing emotion to completion is actually experiencing and feeling the emotion. So we have to allow ourselves to feel the feelings in order to move them through to completion. So we kind of understand emotion, how it causes anxiety, when it causes anxiety, right? Either from the gap of having emotional experience and not knowing how to process it through the left hemisphere, or having emotional inhibitions, that defenses that are in place to block and prevent us from feeling and experiencing emotion because of some experience that we've had. We don't come from the womb programmed like that. We have to have a life-robbing experience that teaches us to block emotion, because naturally we want to process, the brain wants to process it through. But like I said earlier, you can imagine how much anxiety, and if you may be listening and watching this and going, oh my gosh, no wonder I feel so
that
much
makes
anxiety.
so much sense.
That tug of war inside of all of that emotion that I don't know what to do
You're like,
with.
oh, please tell me what to do so I can stop feeling this way.
Yeah. And this idea of, feeling this emotional flooding that can happen. We talked about in the beginning of this episode, the idea of being cut off from your emotion, right? Either because you don't know how to access it, because your emotional intelligence is underdeveloped, or because you unconsciously actually block it defensively because of experiences that you've had that made emotion unsafe. That causes you to be cut off, kind of left hemisphere cut off from right hemisphere kind of experience around those things. But there's also an experience of flooding where there's also a disconnect between the left and the right, in that we feel the feelings, but we don't know how to process the feelings. And so we just get stuck in them, and we just have this emotionality where we feel intense feelings, but they don't complete, and they don't get organized, they're unregulated, and we just feel really emotional and over emotional in a way that is flooding and detracting from life and hurts relationships. And that's also unprocessed emotion, and a disconnect between our ability to regulate and process emotion and the experience and feeling of it. We're just not removed from the experiencing of it in that scenario. But it's still unhelpful.
Yeah, and it feels bad.
And stressful and anxiety producing, because dysregulated, disorganized emotion creates anxiety.
Yeah.
Understandably so. Our system is like, red flag, alarm, alarm. We got all this emotional experience and we don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
Right? And so it's sounding the alarm, which is anxiety, the nervous system, and is a way in which unprocessed emotion produces anxiety also.
Yeah.
So, still with us? I hope you're nerding out like I am.
We're going so nerdy in this anxiety series.
Yes. I like to go deep in understanding these things. So hopefully, if you're still watching, you do too. Otherwise, you'd have checked out a long time ago. As soon as his brain went, you'd have been like, I'm out of here. But I would love if you're finding value in this, leave a comment. What piece of what we're talking about here is helping connect the dots for you in your experience or what you observe in others? I would love to hear from you in that. So let's wrap things up by moving into how do we process emotion to completion.
Yep.
We understand what it is, how it causes anxiety, where we run into difficulties. So how do we actually do this thing and process emotion? Well, the first thing is it requires regulation. Now, we talked about this part of our brain that we need to process emotion goes offline if we're dysregulated. And so the first thing is we need a felt sense of safety in our body. And especially early in learning how to do this, it's impossible to learn how to do this on your own. Like watching this video and me explaining to you the process isn't going to give your brain the capacity to do this. It has to happen with another person. It's in the normal course of developmental process, it happens with an emotionally intelligent parent who, through many interactions with us throughout our childhood, develops this part of our brain and our capacity to do that. And so that is the normal choice one, primary pathway for it to happen.
Yes.
In the absence of that pathway, if our parents didn't have the emotional intelligence themselves to give us, we have gaps there, and we need somebody to fill that gap. We need people to fill that gap. Not necessarily just one person. Doesn't have to be a parent, right? Our parents still may not have that capacity. It usually isn't a parent when you didn't get it in your developmental years.
No.
And it's later in life.
Yeah, maybe your parent comes around and they do their own work to develop those domains, but a lot of times, no.
Yeah. Could be an emotionally intelligent peer. Could be a friend. Could be a mentor. And could be a therapist, right? That a lot of the work that we do at our practice in caring for folks is developing these capacities through the relational experiences, the life-giving experiences that we have with the folks we're working with. And so it's a back and forth process whereby one human nervous system provides regulation to another human nervous system, keeping this part of the brain online and engaged, and then invites reflection, which is inviting you to use the left hemisphere to talk to the right hemisphere, and to notice what's happening in my body, notice the sensations that are a part of emotion, to notice the meaning, like what is this sensation telling me? Is this sadness? Yeah. Is this joy? Is this concern or care? Is this fear? Is this anger? Is this sexual excitement that maybe I'm experiencing? Is this curiosity? Like the basic emotion systems, at the highest level, does this feel good or does this feel not good?
Yeah.
And we're facilitating the building of those neural connections between those regions of the brain through inviting questions and reflection and offering language and holding presence. And this is a slow process. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize. I didn't design it, so you have to take it up with Jesus.
Don't shoot the messenger.
But it's a slow process. I mean, think about it developmentally. For children, it happens over a period of
years.
Yeah, almost 2 decades, right? Like from the orbital frontal cortex doesn't finish fully developing until the early 20s. So it's this brain building process, which is at work throughout the entire lifetime, The brain is reorganizing and rebuilding itself and stuff throughout the whole lifetime. But in terms of completion to mature adulthood, 2 decades of experiences, right? Before the brain is fully physiologically developed to that place. So take a deep breath. It's not going to take 2 decades. That's not what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like the whole brain building process, is a 2-decade kind of journey for humans. But in this building our emotional intelligence capacity, our initial noticing and naming and understanding the meaning, allowing ourselves to feel the feeling through to completion. Remember, we talked about earlier that talking about emotion is not the same as experiencing or feeling it. So allowing ourselves to actually feel the emotion in our body and stay with that emotional experience until it completes, which follows a wave-like pattern where it builds in intensity to a peak and then begins to resolve on the other side. And that whole process takes, if we allow it to happen and stay with the experience, 15 to 120 seconds.
Well,
it's incredibly fast.
The intensest parts.
Yeah, like the whole wave in that, it is a 15 to 20 second kind of process once we allow ourselves to actually feel our feelings. And there may be multiple waves that we experience in that, but a moving of emotion through us is a relatively short process.
Yeah.
Now there's, oftentimes creating safety and laying the foundation and making connection with the feeling on the front end. And then there's making meaning of and feeling the emotions that release on the other side of completing an emotion, such as relief, such as joy, such as sometimes we have like anger about an injustice that then goes into sadness about the loss that was caused because of that injustice. Like there's layers of emotion and maybe multiple waves of emotion that are associated. So when we're unpacking particularly emotionally complex situations with family members or loss of a loved one or jobs that are complicated in relationships, there's multiple feelings, multiple layers of emotion. So the whole thing, takes more time. But for like an emotional experience, once we allow ourselves to actually feel it through to completion, actually doesn't take very much time.
Yeah.
It happens pretty quickly. It moves through us pretty quickly.
Before I ever started this journey of healing these things in myself, I was so afraid to actually let myself feel the feelings deeply because I thought it would send me into a spiral I couldn't recover from. I thought it was going to throw me into complete long-term dysregulation. And so for so long, I avoided allowing myself to feel my emotions deeply because I was afraid of what that could mean for me. And so I think it was such a grace from God and so freeing when I realized it's really normal to feel those really strong peaks. Like it's actually necessary for processing the emotion to completion. And I don't have to be afraid of the spiral because it's actually God's design for it. And it made me think back to like being a teenager and being like, but I would just cry and cry and cry and cry. And I also just realized like I was actually just trying to process those emotions by myself. I did not have another regulated nervous system. I did not have a safe person to process with. And so it makes sense why I wasn't able to process it to completion.
Yeah, you found yourself as a teenage girl in that overwhelmed place of flooding that we talked about before, where you were feeling the feelings, but you didn't have the regulation or somebody to help you organize it in a way that allowed you to process it to completion. And so sometimes, and I appreciate you sharing your story, because sometimes people can be afraid to allow themselves to enter into experiencing their emotions
Yeah.
because they have had experiences where they have just felt trapped in that cycle of emotion, feeling things intensely, but never being able to process them through to completion. And that's a really unpleasant place to be. And it can be a really scary place to be.
So if you're like, well, I'm afraid to talk to my friend about this thing because I'm just going to ugly cry. I'm like, that's what we want to see here. If it feels like you need to ugly cry, excellent. You should ugly cry. Not every emotion wave is going to need that. If it feels like you might get really angry and irate, and the things you might want to say or think or feel would be scary to this other person, love it. That is a really good sign that you need somebody else's nervous system with you. And you got to just find somebody that's safe and can hold those things with you, because anything you could be thinking that you might be thinking or feeling that seems like nobody else could be thinking or feeling this. Let me just say, people are people, and we have these strong emotions, and you would be surprised if you share honestly with somebody who has high emotional intelligence and safety. They'd be like, yeah, I've felt that too.
And I want to, for those who are afraid of, what you might do.
Yeah.
Because emotion has an action tendency to it.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear, so there's not any misunderstanding here, that we're not advocating for making emotional decisions in the sense of being controlled by your emotion.
Yeah.
Like, emotions don't control your behaviors, and they shouldn't control your behaviors, but they should inform your behavior. Emotions are information, and they're valuable and important and valid, and they should inform your action, but that doesn't mean you have to act on every impulse that you have.
Yes.
Nor should you act on every impulse that you have. Like, anger is a very valid emotion. God experiences anger. God expresses anger. If we don't get angry about the things that anger the heart of God, then our heart is incongruent with his heart. Like, we should be angered by the injustice of the world. We should be angered by evil and its impact on others. Like, those things should bother us.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between the impulse of maybe anger, where I feel like punching someone in the mouth,
Right.
versus actually punching someone in the mouth.
Yes.
Like, I may have and see somebody engaging in a way that is not okay. And my first thought may be somebody should punch them in the mouth. Or maybe I feel like punching them in the mouth or in the throat.
Yeah.
I can have some violent tendency thoughts, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to act on that and punch someone in the throat. Now, it may mean that there is action that I should take.
There's almost absolutely action you should take. That's the purpose of anger.
Informing me that there's an injustice there that I should do something about.
Yes.
Right? And when I'm in a regulated state, I get to use my whole brain to make wise choices about what the best action to take is. When I'm in a dysregulated state, a smart part of my brain is shut down, and I might punch someone in the mouth then. And it's an emotional impulsive decision that happens because of not because I'm listening to and in tune to my emotions, but because I'm dysregulated and the smart part of my brain is off. And instead of making smart decisions about how to interpret what I'm feeling and apply it in a given situation, I make dumb decisions because I'm dysregulated. So learning to regulate and learning to co-regulate is really important to making wise decisions.
Vital,
very important to making wise decisions. But that, I can evaluate when I'm in a regulated state, rather not, punching someone in the mouth in this situation is the right thing to do, which, there may be situations where that's the right thing to do. That the scriptures describe instances where stepping in and taking action and standing up against evil is the right thing for God's people to do, which may mean punching someone in the mouth at some point in time. Yeah. But most situations...
Probably not my boss, because he's been giving me too much work and he's been manipulating me into trying to do
maybe
something
instead what I need to have
with.
is an assertive conversation where I set some boundaries. That anger kind of enables and informs me of a violation and gives me energy to have an assertive conversation and to set some boundaries in the situation, which is the healthier, more productive expression of that anger. But the initial impulse may be to punch him in the mouth. And that's really normal.
That doesn't make you evil or bad. That's super normal. Yeah. We all experience that.
Yeah, it's just the immature initial impulse of emotion. It's not the refined using of that information to make wise decisions. Yeah. So we want to separate out the experiencing of emotion and the impulse of emotion and the action tendency of emotion from the discerning of action process that should be informed by emotion but not controlled by emotion. So when the picture of maturity and health, when it comes to decision-making, behavior, emotion, is that of an integrated brain, where we're able to bring to bear all the resources and all the wisdom from our life experience and our understanding of the scriptures and our values, all to inform how to navigate relationships, how to navigate situations moment by moment throughout the day. But if we're cut off from large portions of information that God has wired into us to help inform that, we make worse decisions. Yep. And we have problems in relationships, and we're not able to connect with people, and we're not able to empathize, and we got all sorts of problems, many of which drive anxiety. So, how does therapy help anxiety? What do we do in professional counseling that helps anxiety? A big part of what we do in the kind of therapy that we do, and I caveat that because there's different kinds of therapy and they don't all do the same thing, but the kind of therapy that we do is form this capacity for whole brain integration in regulation and organization so that we can make wise decisions. Sometimes that means healing through memory reconsolidation processes, the hippocampal memories that are influencing our inhibiting of emotion or kind of getting in the way of us, processing emotion because of past experiences that we've had. So we find healing around those wounds. At other times, it's filling in the gaps by having life-giving experiences that build capacity where we lacked having those experiences before. And that's super important because there's other kinds of therapy that are aimed at just managing symptoms. And there's value in managing symptoms. I don't want to poo-poo.
No, we have to get to a regulated state in order to do the deeper work that we're talking about.
If we don't regulate, which some of the symptoms of anxiety are dysregulation, right? Out of check, out of control anxiety. And so, there's cognitive behavioral or CBT as a model of therapy, which generally focuses on trying to keep this part of your brain online so that you can use this part of the brain to help regulate the emotional experience. And staying regulated is really valuable. And deep breathing exercises help with that. Meditation helps with that. Journaling helps with that. Thought stopping and redirecting helps with that. Decatastrophizing helps with that. There's all of these kinds of strategies.
And I would put traditional biblical nouthetic counseling in that same bracket.
Yeah, where we'll try to use prayer and scripture meditation as a cognitive technique to try to regulate the nervous system. And it can be very effective in regulating the nervous system. But where it falls short is it's not actually processing the emotion that is triggering the anxiety in the first place.
No, it's staying out here. We need it to go in here.
Right. And so I think it's important to understand the difference that's there, that there are kinds of therapeutic approaches that have a limited capacity to be helpful. They are helpful, not undermining them. They got evidence-based, they've got research around that shows their effectiveness at reducing the symptoms of anxiety and helping to maintain regulation. But in terms of eliminating the anxiety associated with unprocessed emotion, they're not able to do that.
Yeah.
And so we say stuck in this hamster wheel of managing symptoms instead of actually processing emotion, learning how to process emotion to completion, and benefiting from the vast number of benefits that come from having that capacity in life. So, yeah, that's a wrap for today, man. Hopefully you've gotten a lot out of the time that we've spent hanging out here together. And I would hope that at this point in the journey, you'd understand what unprocessed emotion is, how it causes anxiety, and that you would have some insight into how to process emotion to completion. And maybe you can share this episode with a friend, and you and a friend can practice co-regulating with each other and processing emotion together. Like you don't have to go to therapy to work on these things. If you want to go to therapy, there are therapists that can help you accelerate this process because they know the pathway to get there. But you could start today simply by sharing this episode with a friend of yours and practicing it together.
Yeah. He'd be like, hey, I heard this today. Wanted to see if you wanted to try it.
Yeah.
That's literally the first step.
It really is. It takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes courage to ditch the fake joy and stop pretending like you have it all together, or I'm fine, everything's fine. You know, how are you? I'm fine, I'm good. That superficiality that we call fake joy that keeps us from actually doing the work that allows us to have true happiness and to mature into our true self. And you can do that. You can ditch the fake joy today. And you can, vulnerably send this to a friend and invite them to listen to it and to practice with you these things. And it will begin to help you in your journey of building this capacity. And we want that so much for you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hey friend, thanks for hanging out with us. If you've learned something, please subscribe and share it with somebody you love. You'll probably also like some of the other videos that we have, and so we'll link to those around here. Check them out and we'll keep learning together. And remember, Jesus wants you to live an abundant life, to mature into your true self, like the version of you that he created you to be and that he wants you to mature into, so that you can experience true happiness in him, a life characterized by peace, joy, and hope. And we're here cheering you on as you mature into your true self and experience true happiness. We love you, and we'll see you down the road.